Hey there, welcome to episode 65 of Social Business Engine, the podcast that showcases thought leaders who represent modern business in action, getting results through the culture and technology of social. I'm your host, Bernie Borges of Find and Convert. Hey, thanks for listening in today. I'm excited about this episode. I am bringing you today Rick Short. I've had the pleasure of knowing Rick for more than 6 years now. Rick is responsible for marketing communications at Indium Corporation. Rick has become widely recognized for his achievements at Indium as a very accomplished B2B marketing professional. And he's also a rock and roll musician with a CD coming out soon. I know that Indium Corporation is not exactly a household name, and for good reason. Indium manufactures industrial solder paste and related materials that are used in the electronic assembly industry. In other words, they sell very complex stuff. So on this episode, you're going to discover how Rick convinced a small group of people at Indium to try something radical about 10 years ago called blogging, and how this strategy has evolved or blossomed into a sales machine. Now, this episode is sponsored by Cision. We've partnered with Cision to publish Social Business Journal, Volume 2, a how-to guide in influencer relations. Visit socialbusinessengine.com/Cision to download this journal and up your influencer marketing game. And now let's get to my conversation with Rick Short from Indium Corporation. Rick, welcome to the Social Business Engine podcast.
Hey, Bernie, thanks so much. I'm stoked to be here. It's a beautiful sunny day in New York, and I know it's beautiful where you are.
In Florida. It's always sunny in Florida, except when it's raining.
I know.
Well, Rick, I am really excited about this. This is a long time coming. As I said in my intro, I've known you for more than 6 years now. Your story, even though it was 6 years ago at the time, is one of the case studies in my book, Marketing 2.0. So what I'd like to do, I've already given a little bit of background on who you are, what you do, even and the fact that you're also a rock and roll star. But let's talk a little bit about how you have done marketing at Indium Corporation. Now, you've only been at Indium just a little while, 31 years.
Yes.
So how did you do marketing in the old days before the age of the modern internet?
Well, the way it feels to me when I look back on it was that I was totally captive. I think we all were totally captive back then. The media had all the power, the trade magazines, and that was about all there really was trade magazines and exhibitions set the schedules, set the agendas, the timing, very much limited the content. They set the prices that we paid to engage with the customer, and we had very, very little power. It didn't feel bad at the time because that's all there was. But Looking back on it now, it's prehistoric.
Right. Well, as you said, that's all we had, and so we didn't really know any differently. So fast forward a little bit, because again, you've been there 31 years. You did marketing before the age of the internet in that captive environment that you described. But then somewhere along the way, you noticed this thing called the internet, and you know, as the head of marketing communications at Indium Corporation, you took notice. So give us some insight into what were those early days like when you first embraced the internet?
Well, the early days are different for each of us because we all brought to the dawn of the internet a different set of experiences. If you're older like I am, I'm about to turn 56 years old. If you're from my era, it was very hard to even understand what the visionaries were describing. And I'm assuming if you're a 20-year-old, obviously you grew up with the internet, it makes total sense and that it's not hard to understand. But if you can, for a second, think about the paradigm that someone like me had back then, when someone was describing all the information that people put on the internet was available to you, as simple as that sounds and as familiar as we are with it now, it took a while for someone like me to figure out what that really meant. Does it mean what you say it means? Does it mean what I'm imagining it means? Or is it some limited version of that? Or what does it mean? So it was a period of confusion. Even now, it's hard for me to think that way because I'm so used to the way it is now. But we were confused. I think a lot of the vendors were confused too. The people that were trying to sell us some new idea, that were trying to help us get their business model so that we could help them invest in it and advance it. We were all helping each other. It was a very collegial time. Every conversation that we had, whether it was with a vendor or a person in the same role as I had, we were all helping each other. We were helping each other understand and learn and introducing people to our networks so that we could all learn from somebody else. It was exciting. It was thrilling. It was dangerous. I watched some people not quite get it or bet their money on the wrong horse and went down the wrong path. It was stressful. It was emotional. You had relatively older bosses who really couldn't get it or wouldn't get it. Relatively younger people trying to convince and sell something. Well, it was weird.
Even with all of that as background, Rick, you are a speaker at Content Marketing World this year. And I know it's not your first time, and you're speaking, the title of your presentation is A Power Blogging Strategy to Catapult Your Business. And of course, you are as qualified as anybody, especially in the B2B world. So how did you get to blogging? How did you actually begin the blogging strategy at Indium Corporation?
The first thing was I got it. I got what it meant when somebody finally got through my head and told me, if you put information out there and if people freely search for what they desire and find you become a voice. And maybe if you're good, you become a thought leader. Mm. And that's what appealed to me, was the chance to just be myself. And if I was good enough, or if my company was good enough, maybe we'd command some respect, some interest, some confidence, some trust, and maybe some sample orders and invitations into factories. So I wanted to take a chance at doing that. And then this light bulb went on in my mind. If I could be the first to market, if I could be the first company that cornered that arena of the technology or the topics that I wanted to be the thought leader in, even back then, being first to market mattered. So even in the old days, so I put those two things together. If I could become a thought leader and be first to market, I might have something. Then, of course, obviously, I had to fight off the competition if they were to come at me afterwards. But we all know being the first to market is really powerful. So that's the thought that got me really on fire.
Okay. So I am online as we record this. I am looking at the blog topics that you have listed on your website. Mm-hmm. And for our listeners who are largely mobile and perhaps not in a position to be at your website right now, and my listeners know that we'll have links to anything we discuss here in the show notes. So some of the topics, I'm not going to read all the topics because there's too many to read here and it just doesn't make sense. But some of the topics, just to sample them, include topics like bismuth alloys, lead-free solder temperature, metallization paste, solder sphere, soldering materials, sputtering target, thermal interface material. You get the idea. Very right. Technical topics. So exactly. Clearly the writers, the bloggers who are writing this content themselves have to be technical. So how did you convince engineers at Indium Corporation to invest their precious time to write this blog content?
The first step was mechanical and basic. The first step was me authoring my own blog about something that had nothing at all to do with Indium Corporation. It was kind of a throwaway blog. I just wanted to prove the concept, prove how it worked, get myself skillful so that I would be the strongest person in the company so I could teach and help and show people that I was doing it. And then the next thing was to prove to people that I could make it rain. I could make something happen. I could get people to read, to view, to engage, to correspond. And I did that with this throwaway blog. And it basically proved to my people that this thing was real. This blogging thing, this crazy idea was real. And it really moved the needle. Something happened. At that point, the only question was, would our technical customers behave the same way that this other audience that I was cultivating in my private blog, this throwaway blog?
Can you describe, I'm sorry, Rick, can you describe, when you say technical customer, describe that persona for us, please.
Okay. There are several. When you say personas, my mind immediately explodes because our company operates with 12 personas that we target. I don't mean to
explode your mind. Just to paint a picture for our listeners.
For example, I've got a persona that's a buyer. This person is very, very astute when it comes to technological nuances and differences in product specifications, and their job is to engage with bona fide and highly valued vendors to get the product specified and then get accurate price and delivery quotations. I've got another persona, which is a design engineer. They're more on the frontier. Who's got the products that I need to make my next new product? Who has the service? Who has the delivery? I need to learn a ton about a company, then boil it down to a specific product that that company offers, and then represent that company into my business and not let my own company down by bringing in a bad vendor. Mm-hmm. This is the kind of technical audience. And remember, they're not talking about shoelaces. They're talking about no-flow, die-attach, underfill polymers for semiconductor assembly. That kind of person.
Right. Okay, terrific. Thank you. So you were talking about how you had to kind of prove the concept to get engineers to embrace it and jump on the blogging bandwagon.
Right. They're buried. They don't have an infinite amount of time. Everything that they do, especially engineers, they're very logical. Everything they do has got to go right to the goal. It's got to contribute directly to hitting the target. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so along the way, you mentioned that you had to prove that blogging moves the needle. Mm-hmm. So share some stories, because I've heard some of your stories about how some engineer in some faraway land, because you sell globally, you're a U.S. manufacturer, but I know that you do a lot of business in Asian areas of the world and just all over the world.
We've got 13 facilities around the world, so we're not just a U.S. manufacturer. We've got factories all over the world.
Okay. So you've got this blog content that's very, very long tail.
Yes, long tail is the key word. That's exactly what you're getting to.
Right.
I don't want 50,000 people knocking on my door and asking me questions. If many of them are curious, if they're tire kickers, if they're doing an 8th grade science project, I'm much happier having 5 people contact me a day if they are the absolute target customer. And so right from the very beginning, we all told ourselves at the Indium Corporation, it's not about driving up big numbers. In fact, big numbers are inefficient. We don't want big numbers. What we want is big quality. Mm-hmm. So let's be so specific in our blog types, blog titles, in our blog topics, and in the content that we're purveying, that we don't attract too many people. And if the internet works like it says it's going to work, then we'll be reaching a guy in Tasmania and a guy in Busan, Korea, and a guy in Belgium somewhere, and that's fine. And that's how it went down. That's exactly how it worked. We immediately went into super detail, disregarding quantity, and only sought to bring in the world's most astute Googlers who were searching for these exact same words that we were posting about, and that's what we got. I'm so glad we didn't start off on any other path.
Yeah. Well, I've told your story, Rick, many, many times, and I think you know that, dating back to, my book back in 2009.
I love that book.
Well, thank you. But I've told your story many, many times, including this week, because your story is, to me, it's the model of B2B content marketing, B2B, really social business, because your content is your anchor, and then you socialize it. As a corporation, you haven't been afraid to embrace social in a relevant way, in a way that makes sense, not in an inefficient way. But I want to paint a picture for my listeners, because again, I know that they're mobile. I just randomly clicked on a blog post, and here's the title. The first part of the title, I don't even think I can pronounce it, so I'm going to get to the part that I can pronounce. The perfect tabbing ribbon coating solder alloy, and it's a question. Yes. By Jim Hissert or Heisert.
Heisert, yeah.
Heisert, okay. But here's the cool thing about it, Rick, that I love, and please remark on this. In addition to the content being very technical, very long tail, Jim's picture is in the upper right-hand corner, his phone number, and his email address.
Yes.
What's the strategy behind that?
You're getting to the concept of transparency, and the way I worded it is turn your company inside out. Back in the Mad Men era, we were all represented by stock photography and spokesmodels because, of course, the real people in your company were very, very authentic and strange, and they all had quirks, and nobody's going to like them. They don't have mass appeal. So we're going to put some artificial fake thing up front and make the whole world think that every laboratory has beautiful women in pristine white lab coats with a nice translucent blue substance in a beaker. And that's nobody believes that.
Right.
And you know who really, really doesn't believe that? My target audience.
Right.
Because they're geeks. They're the lab rats. They're the people that, since they were in elementary school, loved the safety glasses and loved being, the Bunsen burners and loved the periodic table, and they were immersed in it. And guess who else doesn't believe that? My own staff.
Right,
because these guys are the geeks too.
Yeah.
And here's the really important thing to connect in all of our minds. My geeks went to school with my customers' geeks.
Yeah.
They get each other.
Right.
In fact, they're more comfortable with each other than they are with me, the director of marketing communication, or with some artificial spokesperson,
right,
or some ridiculously fabricated photograph of a dream lab somewhere with staffed by supermodels. They don't trust or believe that. These people have master's degrees. They have doctorates. You think they believe that that's a real situation when they see a stock photo? No way.
Right.
But when they look at Jim Heisert, a real engineer wearing a real shirt with a real haircut, who's talking real talk because he's not been edited, that's when they start trusting you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Rick, there is so much more I want to cover. But first, I want to pause just briefly for a message from our sponsor, which is Cision. Cision is widely recognized as a leader in public relations software, and we've partnered with Cision in Volume 2 of the Social Business Journal. This is a how-to guide in influencer marketing where everybody can discover a 3-step process from Cision on how to develop an influencer relation program. We've got 21 business experts that have contributed on topics ranging from what an ideal influencer looks like to the secret sauce of really just connecting with an influencer. These experts deliver bite-sized insights that give everybody actionable takeaways on their influencer relations strategy, and everybody can get their copy of Social Business Journal, and of course I mean digital copy, at socialbusinessengine.com/Cision, spelled Cision. Now, Rick, one of the things that I've admired that you do is, and you just alluded to this a moment ago as you were describing your audience and your own staff. They're people. Okay, they're geeks, because they're technology or they're chemical engineers or whatever the proper engineering vernacular is. I'm not an engineer, so I probably just offended 98% of them. My apologies. But you also have pointed out that you've proved, perhaps through some experimentation, that they're normal human beings, and you've experimented with humor. You want to just...
I don't know if they're normal human beings. They're very cool human beings. They're really not normal. These are the people that think really deep thoughts because they've got incredible knowledge. They put things together that the rest of us wouldn't put together, and they invent the most awesome products that we enjoy today. So I don't know if I'd call them normal. These people are cool.
Well, okay, let me qualify what I mean by normal. I remember you once said that you wondered if these people have a sense of humor, and what you realize is that they're human. And so you've experimented with humor, and I am going to call out and shout out one of your videos. It's on your YouTube channel. Now, your YouTube channel is filled with lots of technical content, as well as should be. Valuable, long-tail content for your audience, that engineer. But you also have a few videos on there, and there's one that I'm looking at here titled, We Know SMT Inside and Out, Wave Soldering. And it's only a minute and 39 seconds, and it's about you. You're the character that running some kind of a quality assurance test through some kind of machinery, and you literally go through the machine. So what was your thought process on that? And by the way, that video has almost 11,000 views.
Well, people are curious, and scientists are among our most curious kind of people. Well, that's why they're in science. They're pushing back the frontier. They're exploring. They're developing their thoughts. And how many of us have sat at a car wash and thought, I wonder what it would be like to go through the car wash on the roof of the car, or anything similar to that. And so, of course, our technologists are standing here in front of all this process equipment, all this robotic equipment, the things that are used to make smartphones and tablets and computers and all sorts of electronic devices. And part of our jobs is to set up the system, optimize the system's process parameters, set the dials and adjust it and make sure it's working perfectly. But the only way we really know the results of our tweaking is by receiving the output and then analyzing it. And just go back to your childlike feelings of, I'd know a lot more, I could observe a lot more if I could just go through there with the circuit board and see what really happens, which of course is not recommended. Don't do that at home. But of course, who doesn't think that, right? We've all thought that as kids and growing up. And so I just put that together. I put this basic human feeling and maybe fantasy together with our real life jobs. And I said, well, we really can't do this, but we're all thinking the same thing. So I developed the concept of, we know surface mount technology. It's a manufacturing process. We know SMT inside and out, with the obvious inference to going in it. Mm-hmm. So I put myself through every single piece of process equipment in a series of videos. And of course, you get some pretty ugly consequences if you go through furnaces or other robotic devices. And so I just kind of made fun of a person who did that. What would happen to them? What would they look like on the other side? And mm-hmm. in an attempt to convey that we're passionate about this technology and that we care what really happens, and we're part of the design people, and we're involved in it, and let's really get into it. Let's do something kind of screwy. So it was just a way to capture that the reptilian brain, I guess. Yeah.
Now, so that's great. I love the diversity, although, the vast majority of the content that comes out of your team is long tail technical, but I love the fact that you just mix in a little bit of humor that just shows, like you said, your passion and just the human side.
Yeah.
So comment a little bit about some of the results that you've seen over the years. And I realize that there's stuff that you can't, really disclose because it's confidential. But one of the things, if I recall correctly, that you have shared is how over the years you've been the content that you've produced has resulted in contacts and relationships mm-hmm. that have invited you into product planning earlier in the product life cycle of a prospective customer.
Quite quickly into this whole concept, this whole program, I developed a phrase, which is content to contact to cash. I wanted a quick little phrase that my staff could say to themselves and remind themselves of what this is all about. Because, like I say a lot, I'm not here to blog. I'm not here to make a website. I'm not here to make a trade show. I'm not here to design an ad. Those are all expensive costs that nobody wants to do. I just want to be rich. Think about it from a capitalistic point of view. A business wants to make a profit. I want to be a very profitable organization. I'd rather not spend money. But some of these things are necessary evils. You've got to spend a little money to make money. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted everybody to realize, if I'm going to be on this path to selling more, to getting a bigger piece of customer share, market share, or even increased profits, I've got to do something to get there, obviously. And I'd like to do something unique. And I'd like to do something that maybe is hard, has a high entry barrier, maybe hard for competitors to copy. And so basically, I boiled it down to these 3 steps, which is generating really valuable, meaningful content, the kind of things that my target audience will be typing into Google, purveying that in the marketplace, and converting it into contacts. And I love to describe my desired contact as opt-in, self-qualified, highly qualified, and urgent. If it meets all those requirements, all those criteria, I am thrilled. That's what I want. We want these contacts to come to us, declare themselves, and say, "Hi, I'm Mrs. So-and-so. I'm really interested in no-flow underfill die-attached polymers for semiconductor assembly. I'm intrigued by this article that you wrote or this blog post that you just published, and I'd like to talk to somebody about that." Well, that speaks volumes. Mm-hmm. This is clearly a candidate, right? for a sale. Yes, this is not a tire kicker or somebody out for the weekend with a little time to kill.
Right.
And if you can parlay that into an invitation into her facility to maybe demonstrate some of your product on her production line and turn that into a purchase order, cash, that's what it's all about. So I want to shorten this cycle. I want to reduce the amount of – I want to qualify sales leads tremendously. And I want to make my own staff feel that what we're doing in this program is incredibly valuable and respects their practice and what they're all about, and respects our customers and makes best use of their time and intelligence.
Okay. Now, Rick, this is the Social Business Engine podcast, so we need to talk at least a little bit about social media. And what is the role of social media in your overall marketing strategy?
Each social media channel that we work with has a different goal, a different audience, a different purpose. This isn't because I say so, because as we all know, none of us control the internet or make it do what we want it to do. It does what it's going to do, and we make the best of it. So for example, let's pretend that I wanted Facebook to generate tons of sales leads. It doesn't do that. That's not the way it works for me and for my company. What we do with Facebook is very different than what we do with Twitter. It's very different than what we do with LinkedIn, for example, or blogging. So
or YouTube.
The first thing that we think about is, let's not try to beat this into submission. Let's make it more like judo and use its inherent energy to our advantage. So we analyze how our customers are comfortable using any particular channel, what they're doing, what they'll allow us, and then we try to run with it. Then, of course, you make adjustments along the way.
Okay. So it's integrated into your overall content marketing communication strategy, and I'm sure you measure closely where your audience meets with you and what the engagement looks like.
I try, but it's really hard. There aren't a lot of hard, cold facts that you can stick a thermometer into and really get understanding of what my customers are doing. You can get general information. You can get all the famous glory information that people talk about, but the real core stuff that really matters is hard. And secondly, there's a plethora of social media channels. There are some I've never heard of, and it's hard to know just where to be and what to do and how to be perfect. And I don't even try to be perfect.
Sure.
I try to just do a good job. I try to keep measuring and evaluating what I'm doing and make mid-course considerations and adjustments so that I continue to do a good job in the new era. But anybody that tells you they're just completely a master of any particular channel and they've optimized it, I would love to learn from them, because I'm pretty far from that, as hard as I try.
Well, Rick, let's talk about one final topic before we segue to my one thing question. And that is, you have a registered trademark slogan, and it reads, "From one engineer to another." What's that about?
That's about me, the director of marketing communications, getting the heck out of the middle, getting out of the way, and letting my smart, intelligent research and engineering people talk to our customers' intelligent research engineering people face to face, person to person, with no filter and no baloney. Mm-hmm. And it entails a whole bunch of culture change, which we're through that now. We're past that. But I think for an average regular company, it's got to be scary and painful. But believe me, customers have to first trust you to really do some serious business with you, and they've got to know you really well to trust you.
Right.
So let them see you.
Right, from one engineer to another, and it's copyrighted. So clearly, it is a strategic message. It is very prominent on your website and probably everything that you communicate as a corporation. So kudos to that. Well, Rick, let's segue now to my one thing question. And you know that this is where I ask you if there's, and I can't wait to hear your response, if there's any one thing that you could change about the way that business is conducted today, what would that be?
On the highest level, I would like business to be extremely cognizant of and committed to each of us being as great as we can be, that each of us are enabled and supported and encouraged to be our version of our awesome selves. That means giving us more time to be thoughtful, more ability to focus on the things we really love and that we're passionate about. And so that whatever it is we're doing, we're really, really doing it well, and we feel great about it, and we can't wait to come back and do it again.
So I love that, Rick. But if I understand you correctly, that's empowering you to do what you do in your job, but also recognizing that you, Rick Short, you're also a musician. You also have a commitment to a community organization where you're a volunteer with kids and that sort of thing, and you're passionate about that. And those are two things that I know about you outside of who you are in the world of, B2B content marketing and social business. And what I hear you saying is embrace that for every individual and just allow them to be who they are.
Right, especially in work. Sometimes people get jobs that don't quite suit them, or they grow a little bit away from what they used to love. And sometimes we get stuck at our desk, in our role, in our position. And it's okay, because business just keeps rolling along. It's okay. And maybe it is okay, but it's not the best, and it's not awesome. And if we could continually refresh the assignments and the roles as a company. And secondly, if each individual felt free enough to say, I'd like to do this instead, or I'd like to try doing my job a different way because I can really get behind it better, I think that we'd shine. And I know that there are a lot of other considerations behind what I'm saying. I'm being very theoretical, and I get the corporate management side because I'm responsible for that too. We can't all have everybody doing what they want to do because some bases won't get covered. But if we could just go in that direction a little bit more, I think that people would be much happier with themselves, and therefore, obviously, with their jobs, their careers, their companies, their roles, etc.
Right. All right. Outstanding.
I just love people, and I want everybody to be really happy and fulfilled.
Yeah, and I know that about you, Rick, and that's why I said I've had the pleasure of knowing you for six or more years now, and I know that about you, and love that about you. So, well, Rick, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast with me here today. Thank you. To share your story here at Indium Corporation. Let's, of course, let people know where they can just connect with you and just anything you've got going on in your world that you want to share.
Well, fun side is rickshort.com. And, of course, I'm on Twitter, rickshort21, and Facebook and all the usual stuff. And I'm all over indium.com, behind the scenes, of course.
Okay, terrific. And, of course, my listeners know that I'll have a link to all that in the show notes, and probably at least one of those humorous videos and you stringing a guitar and singing into a microphone somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah. Don't forget the Obsessed with Solder Paste video series. There's some funny ones in there.
Yes.
Including a horrible version of me disappointing my wife tremendously on Valentine's Day, which is acting.
That's a classic. That is a classic.
I love that.
I've shared that many times. Yes.
The way she's not an actress, but man, she nailed it with her facial expression.
She did.
It breaks my heart to see it.
Yeah. Well, that's a teaser for everybody. They're going to have to see that. So tune into our show notes page for that. Well, again, Rick, thank you so much. And before we sign off here, I just want to remind everybody that we've got links to everything at our show notes page, and also on our website. You can get your copy of Social Business Journal Volume 2, a how-to guide in influencer marketing that we produced in cooperation with Cision. And that's right on our website. Just go to socialbusinessengine.com. While you're there, visit our video channel where you can catch interviews with other inspiring business professionals succeeding in modern business through social. And, of course, I always like to request, if you would, please, if you like this podcast, if you would write a review in iTunes. That is so important to help other people discover the fact that this podcast even exists. Reviews in iTunes are kind of like SEO juice, so if you would do that, I would really, really appreciate that, and we've made that easy. Just go to socialbusinessengine.com/iTunes, and there's a link directly to the podcast. Well, that's it for this episode. Until next time, this is Bernie Borges of Find and Convert, wishing you continued success on your social business journey.